Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So today's video we're going to be creating a card that is sort of, I guess, currently trending, which is the flat shaker cards. So I've seen quite a few videos on YouTube now of people creating these. I definitely seen one on Simon Says Stamp. I think that was the first one that I saw and I thought this looked really cool. I wasn't really sure how well it would shake around, so I definitely wanted to give it a go myself just to kind of see really how good it actually was. So I've got some sequins here. These are really just some basic sequins. I don't really use them, to be honest with you. So these are just ones that I've had sort of lying around. I've got some rainbow ink colours here, and I'm going to be using this Simon Says stamp. This is the Radiating Hearts background, red rubber background stamp. And I've got just one of those kind of plastic card sleeves that you can put kind of your finished products into. I've got so many of these lying around that I don't necessarily use them a lot, so I thought this would be ideal because it's kind of clean plastic, but you can buy an actual product. I think it's made by Tonic Studios. If I can find a link to the product, I will pop it in the description box down below, but you can just use any packaging that you have lying around. But like I said, I've got quite a few of these that I don't really use, so I figured that I would use that. So the first thing we're going to do is stamp our background, and then we're going to use our distress ink colours to do a bit of blending over the top. So I'm going to be using my stamping platform here to make sure I get a good impression of my red rubber stamp. So I am using some 300 GSM Ink Me cardstock. You'll notice that I'm using the full 8x8 sheet here. I haven't cut this down yet. I just want to make it easier for stamping my stamp to begin with, and then I'm going to trim it down afterwards. So the ink that I'm going to be using is our VersaFine Onyx Black. So I'm just going to ink up the whole of this background. So I have thought about buying the full size ink pad. It does take a little while to stamp up a big background stamp like this with such a little pad. But we're just going to press down. So what I have done is I've turned the lid over on my stamping platform, and this is then going to allow us to use this big thick red rubber stamp. So we've got a really good impression. We've got just a few pieces here that are missing, so I'm just going to bring that down and just kind of stamp back over those areas, but I'm super happy with how that has turned out. So you can see that I've just trimmed this down to be the size of the stamp itself. I want to give myself as much flexibility as possible, so I'm going to do my ink blending, then I can kind of decide how I want to trim this down. So I'm actually going to start off with our green, and this is the Mode Lawn, and I'm going to kind of stay within these rows of love hearts, and then I'm just going to have it mix in these sections where the image does overlap. So I'm just going to start on one side, and I'm just going to come right across that row of hearts here. So let's just add a little bit more colour. So that is our green. Then I'm going to come down into our Salty Ocean. So again, just doing the same thing, just going to come right into those love hearts, right the way across, and you can see then where I'm just blending these two colours together, sort of in the love heart a little bit, but mainly in that middle section. Let's come in from the other side. And I'm just trying to keep my circular motions to be kind of the size of the biggest love heart that we've got here. And you can see that I'm not really going out of the lines too much. Then I'm going to come in with my Seedless Preserve. So let's get our purple blending brush. And again then, we're just going to come in right in this row at the bottom. I'm trying to be a little bit more light-handed with this one because I find that the Seedless Preserve is quite a dark colour. So I'm just going to come in with a slightly lighter hand. So then we can start moving our way back up. So we're going to go in with our mustard seed. So I love how easily and really quick this is actually coming together. So let's just get a nice amount of that mustard seed in there. So I really don't want this mustard seed to kind of wash out, so I am being just a little bit more heavy-handed, and I kind of going back to my ink pad more often than what I have with those other colours. So let's just do this last love heart there. And if you don't get a really good blend between your colours, a stamp like this, which is quite busy where your mix is going to be perfect, because if you aren't that confident with it, then it is just going to hide it quite nicely. Then we're going to come in with our fired brick for our last row here at the top. So we're just going to do that same thing. Going to come in, we can come in from the top here as well, since there's nothing obviously above that section. And if you find that you're getting too harsher lines along the edge, don't worry about that, because you can trim your panel down. Like I said, we're going to be trimming this panel down, so it should end up being okay. So let's just come in for this last one. Again, try not to be too heavy-handed, because just like that seedless preserve, this one can be quite a heavy colour if you have a heavy hand. So I'm just going to come in really lightly. So I'm just going to come back in a little bit with that mustard seed, just because I've come a little further down than what I would have liked with that fired brick. So I'm just going to come down there, and I'm happy with that. So I really love how this is looking. The blend looks a lot better than what it does here on camera, but this will sort of dry back and, you know, kind of just relax a little bit, but actually in real life this really does look like a great blend. So now I've got my panel all ink blended, I'm going to go ahead and just trim this down. So the card size I'm going to be making is actually going to be 5.5 by 5.5, and our stamp here is 6.5. So I'm actually going to trim this down. I want to have sort of a nice white border around the outside, so I'm going to trim this down to 5 by 5. So there I've got my trimmed down background. So now what I need to do is actually prepare the plastic to go over the front of this. So you could do this with just a pair of scissors. I'm actually just going to use my paper trimmer and hope that it is going to cut it okay, which it has. So what I'm going to do is cut the sides, and I'm going to cut the bottom as well. So I need my plastic topping to be larger than my background piece, because we are going to stick this to the back of it, and that's what's then going to create our shaker pocket. So I'm actually going to trim this to the size of my card, which is 5.5 inch square. So I'm just going to cut down one side. So then I've cut down the other side to actually open up our pocket. And what I can do then is open this up, so I can actually create 2 shaker cards with this piece. But then all I need to do is just line up this piece, and I can go ahead and trim that down. So there I have my piece of plastic that is going to create our shaker pocket. So for this next bit, you're going to want to use something really strong. I'm going to use red liner tape here, because we really want that plastic to stay in place. Otherwise, all of your sequins or shaker elements are going to fall out. So I'm going to pop some red liner tape across all of the back sides. And then when we come to remove it, we only need to remove 3 of the sides to begin with. Then once we've got our shaker elements in, we can remove the last side. So let's take off 3 sides. Then I'm just going to place my plastic over the top. Then all I'm going to do is just fold this up right up against that edge. So I'm going to try and keep this as flat as I can. Okay, so we have our 2 sides up, and then we do have this little corner piece here, and all I'm going to do is just pull out my small scissors and I'm just going to trim that off, just to help kind of neaten things up a little bit. And then we have got our last side here to bring down. And then once again, we're just going to cut off this corner. And that'll just help neaten things up. So there you can see we have got our shaker pocket just in the front there. And now we can fill this in with our sequins. So I've got just an assortment of colours here. Like I said, I don't really collect sequins or anything like that. I don't use them all that often. So again, mine are just sort of very, very basic sequins. And I'm just going to fill this pocket up. Okay, so now we've got our sequins in here. So I'm not really sure how many you're supposed to use. It could be that I've just got too many in here. I'm not sure. Obviously you can see I've got them all over my desk as well. But what we're going to do now is we're just going to lift off the last piece of our red liner tape. And we're just going to fold this piece up. Again, we're going to just trim off our corners. And there we have our flat enclosed shaker. So this has actually worked a lot better than what I was expecting it to. I haven't always gotten on well with shaker cards in the past. I just don't, maybe I never really had the right kind of shaker elements to pop into it, I don't know. But yeah, it's never overly worked particularly well for me. I've always ended up having pieces stuck sort of in the foam and things like that, but I think this has worked quite well. So let's get our panel onto our card base and we can then finish our card. So I'm going to add just some tape runner onto the back of this piece. And then I can add that onto our card base. So there we have our flat shaker card. So now we just need to add a sentiment to the front of this. So for our sentiment, I'm going to be using these two Hunky Dory products that go together. So we've got the For the Love of Stamps Birthday Wishes, and then we have the Birthday Wishes from the Moonstone. So again, these go together. They're part of the Birthday Bonanza collection. So I'm going to be using this happy stamp here, and then we're going to take this large birthday die. So our birthday is pretty much going to take up the whole of the front of this, and I think that's going to look really lovely. So since our die is going to be in the middle, which is going to go over this green section, I'm going to die cut this from some Fern Green cardstock. So let's just hold that down with some washi tape, and then I can run this through my die cutting machine. So here we have our die cut, and when we pop that on there, you can see it, but it doesn't sort of stand out massively. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to layer this onto a piece of vellum. So this doesn't have kind of a shadow die or anything, but I'm just going to cut this out by hand. So I'm going to take my Crafter's Companion dotty tape pen. I'm going to add the adhesive to the back. So let's add that to our vellum. And then I'm literally just going to trim around this. So there's our birthday with our vellum shadow, and you can see just how much better that does actually stand out on there, and I just think that looks so much better. So now we just need to stamp our happy, and then we're going to stamp our happy onto some mustard yellow card, and again then because we're going to be popping that over the yellow section, so I'm going to stamp onto the smooth side of this. So we're going to add this to an acrylic block. And I'm really simply just going to stamp this in some black ink. And we're going to use the VersaFine Onyx Black. So I've just dipped that into my clear embossing powder just to give this a little bit of shine. And now we can heat set this with our heat tool. So there we have our stamp, and then we can just trim this down. Okay, so I was going to edit this bit out, but I thought I'm going to leave it in because this must happen to everyone, certainly not just me. But so I've stamped it, I'd heat embossed it, it looked really nice. I'd trimmed it down slightly to be a block, but I just felt like there was so much sort of yellow space going on. So I trimmed it down, but now I really just don't like how it looks, so I'm gonna go in a different direction. So these are one of the Simon Says Stamp sentiment strips. I'm literally just gonna cut out this word happy. I think I might just ink over it with that mustard seed to kind of match in, and I'm just gonna have it kind of be a little bit smaller. So there's our little happy. So I'm gonna bring back my mustard seed because I do still want it to be yellow. I'm just going to really simply ink over the top of this. So let's bring back our cards. So we have got our birthday, and then we're just going to add our happy just to the top of it there. So let's add some adhesive to this. So I'm just going to add some of our dotty tape pen. You do again need to have quite a strong adhesive to actually stick to the plastic, but let's just pop that there. So then for our little happy sentiment, I'm going to add some foam squares just to the back of this, just to lift it up slightly. So I'm going to go ahead, I think I'm just going to pop it there. And that is going to be our flat shaker card all finished. So I thought that was really easy to make. Like I said before, the shakers that you make, you know, with the foam and stuff, I always find that a little bit more difficult. I find it difficult filling it and not getting all of those sequins of things kind of stuck in that foam tape. But I really enjoyed making this actually. It's not going to be very thick, so you're not going to have any extra postage. If you get a really good seal on this, you could definitely fill it with some glitter. These might make some really beautiful Christmas cards. If you had kind of like snow or something like that, that would make a really beautiful Christmas card. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I think I could get some better sequins. I think that pale yellow in there I'm not really fond of, but yeah, overall this was really easy to make, and I just think actually it looks really, really cool. So that is it for this video. So if you do like this card, then please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. So that's it today. Thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting.